Elera, we've gone over this. The hospital bill is overdue. We can't continue Leo's treatment without payment. There has to be a relative, someone who can help.
Mrs. Gable, there's no one. Just me and him. He needs this medication, please, just a few more days. I'll find a way, I promise.
The world doesn't run on promises, child. It runs on money. And right now you have none. I'm sorry, but this is the last time. If you can't pay by the end of the week, the clinic will have to.
The poor girl begged a millionaire to sleep in his doghouse. His answer shocked everyone. Welcome back, my lovely family. I trust everyone is doing just fine. Before we proceed with this heartwarming story, permit me to pray that you and yours continue to enjoy good health and positive growth in all areas of your lives. If you agree with this prayer, hit the subscribe and notification buttons. The world, as Mrs. Gable so cruelly put it, did indeed run on money. And for 19-year-old Elera, that world was rapidly closing in on her. Every door she knocked on, every job she applied for, was slammed shut in her face. The crushing weight of responsibility for her younger, sickly brother, Leo, was a constant, suffocating pressure on her chest. Their apartment, a one-bedroom hovel on the wrong side of town, was a testament to their dwindling fortunes. The landlord's final notice was taped to the door, a stark reminder that even the roof over their heads was a temporary luxury. Elera's nights were filled with the sound of Leo's labored breathing and the quiet hum of her own desperation. She had to find a way, not just to pay the bills, but to save her brother's life. She just didn't know yet that the solution would come from the most unlikely of places, from a man whose heart was rumored to be as cold as his fortune was vast. It would come from a man who lived a life of unimaginable luxury and whose only companion was a golden retriever. A man whose answer to her bizarre request would shock everyone. The world was a cruel, relentless machine, and Elera felt its gears grinding her into dust. It wasn't just the eviction notice or the doctor's grim prognosis for her brother, Leo. It was the slow, methodical erosion of her spirit. She had tried everything, working 3 part-time jobs, selling her meager possessions, even skipping her own meals to make sure Leo had enough. But every time she took a step forward, the ground beneath her crumbled. Her search for a lifeline was becoming more desperate by the hour. That's when she heard the whispers about Elias Thorne. He was a ghost in the city, a legend whispered about in hushed tones. A billionaire who lived in a fortress of glass and steel, his wealth so vast it was almost a myth. The stories painted him as a recluse, a cold and detached figure who had no time for the misfortunes of others. To a girl like Elera, a girl with nothing, he was a last resort. The day she went to his estate, it was pouring rain, a fitting backdrop for her crumbling world. The driveway was a long, winding ribbon of perfectly manicured stone, leading to a mansion that looked more like a modern art museum than a home. The gates were a towering, intricate masterpiece of wrought iron, a symbol of the immense chasm between her world and his. She stood there, soaked to the bone, staring up at the intercom, her heart pounding a frantic rhythm against her ribs. What could she possibly say to a man who had everything? A voice, surprisingly smooth and rich, crackled through the speaker. "State your business." Elera's voice, a thin and reedy sound, was barely a whisper. "Please, I need to see Mr. Thorne. It's an emergency." The gate remained sealed. A long, agonizing pause stretched between them. "Mr. Thorne does not see visitors without an appointment." The voice was devoid of emotion, a programmed response that felt like a final rejection. Just as she was about to turn away, a movement caught her eye. An elderly man, the groundskeeper, was raking leaves near the gate. He saw her, a young girl shivering in the rain, and his expression softened with a flicker of sympathy. He walked over, a large umbrella held over his head, and whispered to her, "Mr. Thorne is a difficult man, but he has a soft spot for his dog, Samson. His office overlooks the garden. If you can get his attention there, you might stand a chance." With a newfound, desperate hope, Elera hurried around the side of the mansion, her gaze fixed on the expansive windows of what had to be Thorne's office. She saw him there, a solitary figure seated at a massive desk, his face a mask of cold concentration. He was a handsome man with sharp, chiseled features and a commanding presence, but there was an air of profound sadness about him, a stillness that seemed to permeate the room. Her plan was a foolish one, but she had nothing left to lose. She took a deep breath, cupped her hands around her mouth, and shouted, "Mr. Thorne, please, I'm begging you." He didn't move, not even a twitch. It was as if she were a ghost, a meaningless whisper in the wind. A new wave of despair washed over her, and for a moment, she thought about giving up. The rain plastered her hair to her face, and her clothes clung to her like a second skin. She felt defeated, humiliated, and utterly alone. But then she thought of Leo, of his small hand in hers, of the promise she'd made to him. She had to try one more time. Taking a deep breath, her voice raw with emotion, she yelled again, "I don't need money. I just need a place to sleep. Just for a little while. I'll do anything." This time he shifted. Just a slight turn of his head. He looked down, his gaze scanning the vast lawn, his eyes finally landing on her, a small, insignificant figure in his sprawling, perfect world. The silence that followed was deafening. She felt his stare, not of anger, but of a piercing, unnerving curiosity. He made a gesture to the groundskeeper, and a moment later, the man was escorting her to a small, isolated wing of the mansion. The door opened into a grand foyer, and she was led down a long, echoing hallway. Her heart hammered in her chest. Was this it? Was he going to send her away? Or was this her miracle? The door to his office was massive, carved from dark wood. The groundskeeper knocked once, then opened it, gesturing for her to enter. Elera stepped into the room, her eyes wide with awe and a touch of fear. It was a space of power and wealth, but also of quiet solitude. Bookshelves lined the walls, filled with a lifetime of knowledge. A roaring fire cast a warm glow over a leather armchair, and in a corner, curled up on a plush dog bed, was a majestic golden retriever. He looked up, his tail giving a single, lazy thump against the floor. Elias Thorne stood up from his desk, his presence filling the room. He was taller than she expected, and his gaze was intense, analytical. He didn't offer a hand, didn't smile. He simply studied her, from her worn-out sneakers to her rain-soaked hair. "You said you'd do anything," he said, his voice a low rumble. "You have no idea what that means." "I do, sir," Elera whispered, her voice trembling but steady. "I have a brother. He's very sick. We have nowhere to go. I just need enough to pay his medical bills and find a new place to stay." She explained her idea, her voice gathering strength with each word. It was a humiliating proposition, but she had to lay it all on the line. She offered to work for him, to clean, to cook, to do anything in exchange for a few $100s. She even offered to sleep outside, if that's what it took. Thorne didn't react, his face unreadable. He walked over to his dog, Samson, and knelt down, stroking the golden fur with a tenderness that surprised her. Samson licked his hand, his eyes filled with a devotion that seemed to break through the man's icy exterior. He stood up and turned to face her, his hands clasped behind his back. The question he asked next was not what she expected. "Why the doghouse?" he asked, like a man on a fact-finding mission. "You begged me to let you sleep in a doghouse. Why not just a bed in the house?" Elera was taken aback. She hadn't expected him to be so direct, so curious. She swallowed hard, her mind racing for the right words. "Because I know I don't belong here, sir. I'm not. I'm not worth a bed in your house. But a doghouse, that's a place for a creature that needs shelter. And right now, that's all I am. A creature in need." A flicker of something crossed his face, a fleeting moment of what looked like understanding, perhaps even pain. He ran a hand over his tired eyes. The world has a way of beating the humanity out of people, doesn't it? He walked back to his desk and opened a drawer, pulling out a thick, legal-looking contract. He slid it across the surface to her. "I don't give handouts," he said, his voice hard. "Not to anyone. I don't trust promises and I don't believe in charity. But I have a proposition for you." Elera's heart leaped. Hope, a feeling she had almost forgotten, surged through her veins. You will not be sleeping in a doghouse, he stated, his voice a definitive finality. But you will be working for one. This contract states that you will be my personal caretaker for Samson. He's old. He needs medication, attention, and he has a strict routine. You will be responsible for him and him alone. In exchange, I will provide you with a salary, a place to stay, not the doghouse, but a guest house on the property, and an account to cover all of your brother's medical expenses. You will have no other duties. No cleaning, no cooking for me, nothing. Just Samson. Elera stared at the contract, her mind reeling. It was too good to be true. It was more than she could have ever dreamed of. It was a lifeline that would not only save her brother, but give her a future. She looked up at him, tears welling in her eyes, a wave of relief washing over her that was so profound, it almost buckled her knees. "Why, sir? Why me?" she asked, her voice choked with emotion. He looked at her, his expression a mixture of coldness and something she couldn't quite place. "Because, young woman, you had the courage to ask for what you needed, not what you thought you deserved. And a lot of people in this world have forgotten how to do that. And besides," he added, his voice barely audible as he turned away, "I've seen what desperation looks like. It's a lot like grief. As you listen to Elera's story, I want you to remember that every one of us, no matter where we are in our lives, has a story of resilience, of fighting through the dark. What's a time you had to fight for something you desperately needed? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to join our community and be a part of more inspiring stories like this one. Elera's new life was a paradox of opulence and isolation. The guest house was a sanctuary of comfort she'd never known, with soft sheets, hot water, and a kitchen stocked with food. But her world was confined to the sprawling grounds of the Thorne estate. Her days were a quiet, predictable rhythm of tending to Samson. He was more than a dog. He was a silent, furry testament to Elias Thorne's carefully guarded heart. The first few weeks were a careful dance of boundaries. Elera would wake with the sun, take Samson for his morning walk around the impeccably manicured gardens, administer his medication, and prepare his special meals. She found a strange sort of peace in the routine. Samson, with his gentle eyes and aging gait, became her only friend. She would whisper her worries to him, pouring out her fears for Leo and her own uncertainty about this strange new reality. He would simply rest his head in her lap, his quiet presence a source of profound comfort. Elias Thorne, meanwhile, was a ghost in his own home. She would see him from a distance, a silhouette in a window, a brief glimpse of him in the garden, always alone. Their interactions were minimal, a curt nod here, a brief instruction there. The narration revealed the true nature of their arrangement. He had paid her for a service, and their connection was purely transactional. Yet, Elera noticed the small details. The way Thorne would watch from his office window as she and Samson played, a flicker of something unreadable in his eyes. The way he'd leave a new book on her doorstep, a silent acknowledgement of her presence. The way he'd ask the groundskeeper about Samson's appetite and energy, a question that was really about Elera's care. One evening, a storm raged outside, mirroring the turmoil in Elera's heart. Leo's fever had spiked, and the doctor had called, demanding a specific, expensive medication that wasn't covered by Thorne's initial deposit. The account he'd set up for Leo's treatment was a separate matter, but the funds were in a system that would take a day to clear. Leo couldn't wait. Elera, panicking, raced to Thorne's office. She found him in his usual spot, a glass of amber liquid in his hand, staring into the flickering fireplace. "Mr. Thorne, I'm so sorry to bother you," she began, her voice shaking. "It's Leo. He needs this medication now. The hospital won't release it without payment, and the funds, they're not available yet." He didn't turn around. "The contract is clear, Elera. Your duties are for Samson. I have provided for your brother's care. It is not my responsibility to manage your funds." Her heart sank. She had made a terrible mistake. He was a billionaire, a man of cold, hard logic, and she had presumed on his kindness. But desperation pushed her on. "Please," she begged, the word a raw, broken plea. "He's all I have. He's my family. I can't lose him." Thorne finally turned, and the narration described the face she saw. It wasn't the cold mask she was used to. His eyes were haunted, filled with a deep, bottomless sadness. He walked over to a bookshelf and pulled out a small, framed photograph. He didn't show it to her, but his gaze was fixed on it, a silent communion with the past. The narration revealed the story he had never told. He had a sister, a girl named Elera, who was his entire world. She had a rare, terminal illness, and Thorne, in his youth, had made a promise to his parents that he would take care of her, a promise he broke when he left home to build his empire. His ambition had consumed him, and by the time he returned, she was gone. The only thing he had left of her was her beloved golden retriever, a dog named Sam. The narration revealed the truth about Samson. He was named after his predecessor. His wealth had been his sister's undoing. He'd been too late. He looked at Elera, a new light in his eyes. "My sister, Elera, died when she was just a few years older than you are now," he said, his voice a low, pained whisper. "She told me once that all she wanted was for me to be happy. I became wealthy instead, and when she got sick, I thought money could fix everything. But it couldn't. It never can." He walked back to his desk, took out his checkbook, and wrote a check with a few swift strokes. He handed it to her, his hand trembling slightly. It was for a much larger sum than she had asked for. "This is not charity, Elera," he said, his voice firm but no longer cold. "It's for Samson. I need you to focus on him, and you can't do that if you're worried sick about your brother. Consider this a bonus. Just don't make my mistakes." The moment was a turning point. It wasn't just about the money, it was about the revelation. She saw the man behind the myth, the pain behind the walls he'd built. The doghouse had been the key, a bizarre and beautiful test that had unlocked not just her future, but his redemption. The narration reflected on this shift, how two people from different worlds had found a common ground in grief and unspoken loss. Just as Elera's and Elias's worlds are beginning to intertwine, so too can we build a connection here. If this story has touched you, if it's made you think about the hidden struggles people carry, please take a moment to subscribe. Let's build a community that understands that there's always more than meets the eye. And tell us in the comments what you think about Elias Thorne's past. Did his pain justify his coldness? The check for Leo's medication was more than just money, it was a bridge of trust. Elera felt a subtle but profound shift in her relationship with Thorne. Their conversations, once brief and transactional, now carried a new weight. He began to ask her about her dreams, her hopes for her brother, and her plans for the future. He wasn't just observing her, he was seeing her. The narration emphasized this change, illustrating how the walls he had built around his heart were slowly, painfully coming down, brick by brick. The final test came on a crisp autumn morning. Thorne summoned Elera to his office, the same room where she had first begged for a place to sleep. The air was different now, filled not with desperation, but with a quiet, almost familial anticipation. "I have another contract for you, Elera," Thorne said, his voice surprisingly soft. He didn't slide it across the desk this time. He held it in his hands, his gaze fixed on her. "This is a different kind of proposal. One that will change your life and the lives of many others forever." He explained the offer. It was a proposal to fund and oversee a non-profit organization dedicated to providing affordable, compassionate medical care for children with chronic illnesses. The organization would be named the Elias Thorne Foundation. He wanted her to be the director. The narration described her shock and disbelief. This was a man who had been a ghost in his own city, who had shunned the world and all its problems. And now he was offering to give her the world. "Why me?" she asked, her voice a tremor of disbelief. "I don't know anything about running a foundation. I'm just a girl who wanted to sleep in a doghouse." He finally smiled, a rare, breathtaking sight. "You're the only person I know who understands what it means to truly fight for someone you love," he said. "You're not motivated by money or status. You're motivated by love. And that, Elera, is the most powerful resource there is. My sister, Elera, wanted to open a home for children just like your brother. I was too late to fulfill her dream. But through you, I can make it a reality. Through you, my sister's legacy will live on." The revelation was a powerful emotional climax. Elera finally understood. The doghouse had never been about her worth. It had been about her spirit. It was a test of her courage, her resilience, and her love for her brother. The narration highlighted how Thorne, in his grief, had been waiting for a reason to believe in humanity again. He had been waiting for someone to show him that not everyone was consumed by greed and selfishness. He had found that person in a young girl who was willing to humble herself for the love of her brother. This story showed Elera not as a desperate girl, but as a confident and compassionate leader. She now works in a gleaming new medical facility, guiding doctors, talking to parents, and holding the hands of sick children. Leo, now healthy and happy, was a volunteer, a beacon of hope and a testament to her unwavering love. This story emphasized the ripple effect of her kindness, how a single act of courage had blossomed into a legacy of hope and compassion. The once reclusive Elias Thorne was now a frequent, smiling visitor, a silent partner in her mission, his heart no longer a fortress but an open door. The narrative ends on a poignant note, a final reflection on the transformative power of human connection. The story of a poor girl, a reclusive millionaire, and a doghouse was not about money or social standing. It was about redemption, about the unexpected places we find solace, and about the fact that sometimes the greatest treasures are found not in mansions, but in the heart. As we come to the end of this incredible journey, remember that every story has a ripple effect. Your support helps us continue to share these powerful narratives. If you haven't already, please subscribe to our channel and become part of our community. We'd love to know what you thought of this story. Let us know in the comments below, and tell us where you are in the world. From my heart to yours, thank you for watching. Also remember to hit the notification button so you don't miss the next heartwarming story coming up tomorrow. See you soon.